This is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
Aliens in Peru. Well, we'll find out. Welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. As you can see, we are in the barn for the first time. This is our first broadcast coming to you from our new facility on our property, a building that came with our home. And thanks to your generosity, we've been able to convert this into usable office and studio space. This is not the final configuration. As you can see over my left shoulder there, back wall, that's actually the front wall of the building. There, the spray foam insulation, the paneling most of the way down this side and all across the back wall here. So there's still some work to be done. The Unraveling Revelation studio will be right behind that screen that is behind me. Sharon was very gracious in spending this Saturday afternoon as we're recording this to set the stage here and move things around, which are going to have to be moved back to accommodate the 5 and 10 studio, which we've built for doing the daily news updates for Skywatch TV. So we've kind of cannibalized that studio just a little bit. But bottom line is we are now in this building, and we are thankful that we now have a facility separate from our home where we can work. We've got some just a lot more flexibility to do things. We'll be setting up an area to produce presentations and so forth here in the barn going forward. So still a lot of work to be done, but the biggest part is complete. And that is all due to you, because this is not a project we would have undertaken on our own. We would not have gone into debt to do it. We would have just continued using our spare bedrooms. So thank you for making this possible. And we will just keep you updated on our progress going forward. Of course, we'll be talking with our guest this week about a couple of the big news items of the week. Obviously, the Iran, or rather the Israel-Gaza war, because he is our guest on our planned tour of Israel coming up in 5 months now, in March, late March, early April of 2024. Will that be affected? We'll have some news on that straight ahead. And, of course, the passing of a friend and mentor to both of us, and I'm sure that'll come up during our conversation. Joining us, gentleman is putting together an expedition to a part of the world that he knows better than most of us in the Northern Hemisphere, because after high school, he decided to just go there, just move there and live. Didn't speak the language. And being a city boy like me, I'm just amazed at his courage and self-confidence. Nothing I would have ever done. And he is going back there to investigate strange news reports coming out of the Amazon of Peru. He is the author of the best-selling book, Birthright, and our special guest on our 2024 tour of Israel, Timothy Alberino. Tim, before we dive into the meat of the conversation today, which is this expedition that you're putting together, and God bless you for having the energy and the self-assuredness to go and do this. Not my calling, I can tell you. We need to, I think, to address the passing of one of the greats, a friend to both of us. I consider him a mentor. I suspect you do as well, and that is Tom Horn, who was called home to be with the Lord just not even 48 hours ago as we're recording this.
Yes, it's been sort of a gut shot, I think, to a lot of us that we've lost Tom Horn. Tom was, he was an original OG in the field that you and I are in this arena. There was just a handful of guys, 15 years ago. It wasn't like it is today, where everybody and their brothers talking about Nephilim and aliens and stuff like this. There wasn't many people. It was just a handful of guys out there. And, it was Chuck Missler, of course, Tom Horn, Steve Quayle, Ellie Marsuli. Outside of that, there really were not many others. Michael Heiser a little bit later on. Right. And, of course, we lost Michael Heiser recently as well. And so this is, to lose Tom Horn, especially with the chaos that's going on in the world and the prophetic implications of what's happening around the world, it seems very interesting. But if I can, just to sum up my thoughts, I'd like to just read very quickly what I posted earlier today. This morning I got up and of course I heard about Tom passing yesterday. But this morning I sat here at my desk and I just sort of pulled up a picture of Tom and was just looking at it and just thinking, what can I say? How can I sum up the impact that Tom's had on my life. And so I wrote this morning. Tom was one of the most influential people in my life. He was an exceptional researcher, a masterful writer, and a wonderful teacher. He was a father to the fatherless and a friend to those who were brokenhearted. He ran his race with endurance and faithfully completed the calling on his life. May we all aspire to the same. And I didn't have the opportunity to spend a whole lot of time with Tom. On several occasions, we did some projects together, but as I said earlier, the influence of Tom's work on my own development in these fields and my own thought processes was tremendous. And one of the things about Tom that I loved the most, Tom and Nita, is, and I know this was the thing that was the most near and dear to Tom's heart, is how they took care of those orphans.
Yeah.
How they took care of the Whispering Pony Ranch ministry, and how they ministered to those children in the foster program. That was people who knew Tom, who were close to Tom. Whenever he you could talk about Nephilim and stuff like that with Tom all day long, but when he talked about those kids, you really saw where his passion was. And and I think that's just it's one of the amazing things about the Horns, Tom and Nita, is how they really lived the gospel of Christ.
Amen. Amen to that. Tom could have retired and just lived a very comfortable life here in the Ozarks. And within about 15 minutes of moving here, he began putting the pieces in play to create what became Whispering Ponies Ranch. Part of that, I'm honored to say, was offering Sharon and I an opportunity to partner in the ministry through whatever strange gifts we have. I guess my talents are talking and using a computer, but for that was able to play a role in what happened here. But the stories that Joe Horn, who clearly considers Tom his hero, will tell stories about Tom, and the two that he tells that I think really summarize who Tom was. There was a young boy, age 9, in the foster system, who came through the partner ministry, Royal Family Kids, to the ranch, and just the first day in the dining hall there. And I should point out, for people not aware of what Skywatch TV does for Whispering Ponies Ranch, the ministry of Skywatch TV is essentially to finance what happens at Whispering Ponies Ranch. So ministries like Royal Family Kids don't pay a dime, because Tom and Nita couldn't stand the thought of one child having to be left, and a ministry having to decide which kids do we leave because we can't afford the fee for the camp. They don't pay a dime, and that's what Skywatch TV does. This boy on the first day at the dining hall, looking at the salad bar and seeing a whole variety of salads and fruit, because he'd never seen a bunch of grapes before. And this kid just standing there with his eyes wide open, and he says, "I'm eating like a king." And Tom laughed and then had to immediately excuse himself from the room so he could break down and cry. Because of things that we take for granted. You go to the local supermarket and you've got all of the produce there. We live a higher standard of life than the kings of the ancient world, the powerful kings of the ancient Near East that we read about, Sargon the Great and so on. We have a higher standard of living and live in greater comfort than they do. We take it for granted. But this 9-year-old boy, looking and seeing grapes in front of him for the first time, that he could reach out and he could have a second biscuit if he wanted one, eating like. The other story that I'd never heard until today, when Joe Horn shared this on YouTube, was Tom, who not only was the vision guy, but when it came to Whispering Ponies Ranch, he was very hands-on, and so he was out there one day. Unplugging a plugged toilet. He was there with the plunger in one of the rooms, And by this point, last few years, Tom's beard had gone white, and so he hadn't shaved in a few days. So the beard was kind of filling in, and he's there. And some of these children are hearing the gospel message for the first time, and hearing stories of Jesus and God for the first time. And of course, they're presenting it to the children in a way they can understand, cartoon drawings and things like this. Mm-hmm. And so this boy comes back into the room and sees Tom wearing a white T-shirt with, the white beard, working the plunger. And this boy stops, his eyes get big, and he says, "Are you God?" And Tom's response captures who Tom Horn is. He says, "No, I'm not God. He just lets me work here." And for people who don't know Tom Horn, that there summarizes.
That's right.
Summarizes Tom.
That's right.
And so we grieve for the Horn family and our own sense of loss at living in a world without Tom Horn in it. Mm-hmm. But we know a day is coming when we will rejoin him. You and Tom went on an expedition to the Four Corners area some years ago, so I know that what you're planning and what you're getting ready to leave for in just a couple of days is something Tom would really have appreciated. Some strange stories coming out of Peru. So to set some backstory for your expedition, Tim, what is going on in Peru? Why are you going there?
Well, there was a story that came out of the region of Loreto, in the Amazon region of Loreto in Peru. That's the northeastern part of Peru. And it was one of the most viral stories I've ever seen. I mean, this thing just exploded. And it began with some footage that appeared on social media that was captured on cell phones by these villagers out in the jungle. And they were running around yelling, discharging firearms into the jungle. And they were describing in this video that they had captured themselves, these villagers, what was going on. And apparently, according to them, there was some sort of an intrusion happening into their village, and they were calling it extraterrestrials because whoever was on the outskirts of this village apparently had the ability to float through the jungle. They described these beings like wearing sort of armored bodysuits, helmets. They said that they were lifting off the ground. They had some sort of a disc apparatus on the bottom of their shoes, of their boots, and they're lifting themselves off the ground and floating through the jungle, a meter off the floor of the jungle, is what the Apu, the chief of the village, said. And they were able to also lift off into the air above the canopy, and apparently the gunfire had no effect on them. A couple of the men in the village said that they had discharged their rifles at point blank range at these things, and with no effect. And there was also some indication that they were able to disappear, these entities. So that hit the social media platforms and just went crazy. And then sort of more information was beginning to leak out and from the village themselves. And there was a video that surfaced of this young girl who was, and this video actually preceded the one I just said. It was a young girl who was obviously in distress. She had a laceration on her neck from the same village. And apparently she was eating some fruit on the outskirts of the village when two of these individuals that I just described, these strange beings, tried to abduct her. That's what we think. It's assumed that they tried to abduct her. And she doesn't recall a whole lot of the episode. She remembers there were two beings. And there's different details that don't make sense. Things that she said, and this is part of what I intend to clarify. But the gist of it is that these two beings attempted to abduct her, apparently, and in the course of this struggle, she was able to scream, and then she went unconscious. And her brother, I believe it was her brother, heard the scream, and him and some of the other men of the village came running and found her unconscious, lying on the floor with the laceration to her neck. And so they picked her up and brought her into a house and were dressing the wound. And that's how this whole thing began. And then after that, following that, was the video I just described came out. And then another video came out in which all the, from the same village, in which all of the villagers, all of the women and children were huddled together in the middle of the village, and all the men were running around yelling, and they were pointing flashlights, and you can hear guns going off. And one of the guys with the flashlight pointed right above a house, right into a tree above a house, and he started to yell, there it is, right there, there it is. And he trained that light on something up in the tree. And I saw the video, and I'm just going to tell you what I think I saw in the video. I saw what looked like the head of not necessarily a typical gray alien, but what's described as an insectoid in the UFO research material, especially from the abduction material, which is more of a tall being, sort of like a gray, but with a not so bulbous head, and much more insect-like looking. And I couldn't believe it, because you can actually see something in the tree, and its head is moving side to side. So I called up my buddy Doug Thornton, and I asked Doug, have you seen this video? Have you seen what's going on in Peru? And he hadn't, so we were discussing it, and we said, hey, we should record this discussion. We should just record this. So we did. We jumped on Zoom and recorded our discussion and pulled up the videos and analyzed them there in real time. And to demonstrate how viral this was going on social media, that little quick video, well, it wasn't really quick, I think it was like an hour and a half or something. That video, I published it on YouTube, and within 1 week, it got 1 million views. Actually, it was going to hit 1 million views, and then YouTube, it had 950,000, and then YouTube age restricted it. And that, of course, takes it out of the algorithm. And the reason why YouTube age restricted is because there was a video within the video that we did. We featured a video in which a man is being pulled, is being unloaded onto the bank of a river in the same area of the jungle, and 3/4 of his face is gone, and it's just white, bleached skull, and a very, very precision cut around his neck. So it did not appear to me to be the work of piranha. Plus, you would have a lot of the bone nicked away from piranhas. Very, very clean. Whatever happened to this guy, whatever happened to him was very interesting. And so all of this relates to a legend in the jungle called the legend of the Pelacaras. And Pelacara means face peeler. And this is an old legend in the jungle. I heard it in the jungle when I lived there. And these are apparently entities who stalk around the jungle, and every now and again they'll abduct someone and peel their face off for whatever reason. And the villagers are always terrified of these things, but everyone always sort of just laughed it off, like this is just a myth, right? So the villagers, of course, are thinking these are Pelacaras, and they're saying they're extraterrestrials. And of course, what happened was the media in Peru, the press was taking this story very seriously, which surprised me, very seriously. They were not joking about it. They covered it extensively, and eventually a couple of reporters got up to the village, Peruvian reporters, and did a very preliminary type of investigation. But these were not ufologists or anything like that. They're just media personalities from Lima. And a story emerged. The police went out there. I had thought that the Navy investigated. That's what I heard. That's what our media was, like AP and some of our other media outlets were reporting, that the Peruvian Navy had gone and done an investigation. That's not true. Only some policemen went up there and didn't really do an investigation. They just went up there and, took down the testimony of the villagers and left. But the thing is that this incursion, whatever it is, was happening for weeks and every single night, and only at night. So something very bizarre was going on, and these people were obviously distressed, deeply distressed, and traumatized by whatever was going on. Long story short, I didn't have my passport at the time, and this was back in late July, early August. I didn't have my passport. And so I was kind of like, oh, that's good. I don't have to worry about the temptation to go down there to an investigation. I don't have my passport. Even if I wanted to, I can't do it. So I thought, well, there's that. That's not going to happen. And I remember it was my wife's birthday, and I took her out to dinner, and we're talking, and I'm talking about this village thing, and she looked at me and she said, you know, you have to go down there, right? She's like, you have to do this. Nobody else can do this. And the reason why she said that is because I speak the dialect. I've lived in that jungle. It's in the Alto Nanay region of Loreto. I've spent a lot of time up there. I have the dialect. It's called Charapa. And you know, I'm a ufologist. And she's like, you got to go. You know, you got to go. And it's kind of strange hearing that from your wife, considering that this is first of all, there's some weird, bizarre thing going on, face peeler phenomenon, but also this is a red zone for malaria and dengue. In fact, I contracted malaria up there. So I just, when my wife told me that, and I hadn't had my passport yet, it was still, and I thought, you know what? It was like, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? It felt inevitable. It felt like, you know, like Jesus said to Paul, why do you kick against the goads? You know, like, why are you resisting the inevitable? And the goads, of course, being these wooden spikes basically in the front of a cart to stop the horse from, you know, kicking back and being obstinate, right? Instead of just going forward and doing what marching in the direction they're supposed to go. And so it was sort of like that. Like, why am I kicking against the goads? I have to go. I know I have to go. So I just acquiesced to the inevitable. And when I got my passport, I tagged my buddy Doug Thornton, who's a Marine and ex-DHS, and I asked if he wanted to go, and he said, "Yeah, I'll go. Let's do it." And so we mounted this expedition. I've organized the expedition, and we are headed into the jungle next week. We're going deep up into Alto Nanay. I should say also that during that time when this phenomenon was going on, there were also incidents in other parts of Loreto happening. There was a group of students, apparently, from a school or a university who were in the jungle for whatever reason, and they all collectively saw a strange being walking in the jungle. There was a couple of young people from a village not far away who were walking together, and a UFO discharged some sort of a laser at them or light, and they felt like they were being pulled off the ground and started screaming and yelling, and it eventually let them go and went away. These are the kind of stories that were happening at the same time. The U.S. military, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, Space Force, along with their counterparts from Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Uruguay, and I believe the UK, were all in Peru during this time running a program. I can't remember the name of the program off the top of my head. A training program, a training exercise together, and some of these operators were in the jungle up there, for sure, on the Amazon. The Navy, for example, was operating on the Amazon because the Iquitos is where the Amazon begins. That's the beginning of the Amazon River, where the two rivers, Marañón and the river Huallaga, come together and form the Amazon River, right in Iquitos. And they were up in that region, Space Force, operating in Peru. So it's just all very bizarre. And since then, things have calmed down in this village, although not entirely. And the phenomenon seems to have been spreading to different parts of the jungle, to the Peruvian Amazon. Now they're getting reports in a place called Tarapoto, Peru. I lived there for 10 years. Two of my kids were born in that city, in the jungle. And they are now reporting Pelacara encounters and the same sort of phenomena that began. And by the way, this village, the village where all of this began, is called San Antonio de Pintuyacu. And Pintuyacu is the river, the name of the river, and San Antonio is the village. And it's about a 2-day journey up the river from Iquitos. So all of this was unfolding. I got my passport in the mail, and again, I just knew it was inevitable. I had to go. So what happened then is I mounted this expedition. I was able to get in contact with the village through a Brazilian ufologist named Ronnie Vernet. Ronnie's a great ufologist in Brazil. And somehow he had gotten in contact with somebody from the village. And so he passed me the contact. I rang the guy's phone, and he happened to be in Iquitos when I called him. And I was able to talk to him on the phone and text with him on WhatsApp. And long story short, I now have an official invitation to go to the village. In fact, the leader, the Apu of the village, whose name is very difficult to pronounce, his first name is Jairo, is meeting me in Iquitos, and he and a few of his guys are from the village, are going up the river with me. They're ushering me into the village with an official invitation. The villagers are, because of what's been unfolding out there, they have not been going about their daily routines, which is going out and gathering food in their chakras, their farms, and so forth. So they've been low on food and supplies. So one of the things that we're doing is we are supplying the village. We're bringing food and medicine, and also we're bringing some strategic technology. We've purchased some commercial grade night vision goggles that they can record with, and some extremely high powered flashlights, 7,000 lumen flashlights. We can't bring them guns. Otherwise, we could try to bring them automatic weapons. But we can't do that. So, and I want to acknowledge the participation in this endeavor of some of the gentlemen from a church in Tennessee called, oh my God, Conduit. I almost lost the name. Conduit Church. Pastor Darren Tyler, who was in Peru with me recently on a trip on a tour in Cusco. Pastor Darren Tyler, my friend Jamie Brandenburg, who's a member of the church, and some of their guys, some like a men's group from that church, decided to help me fund this operation, fund the expedition, and charter the riverboat and buy supplies for the village. So I think it's really cool that this thing exploded. Everybody in the world of ufology knows about it. Everybody's asking, who's going to go? Who's going to go? Someone's got to go up there, right? And I'm sitting over here going, oh, it's a good thing I don't got my passport, because that's probably be me. And then I got my passport, and I'm going, and I think it's very cool that it's a group of Christian guys who are going to get the job done, and who are provisioning this village and showing up on scene, and are going to, I don't know what we're going to find. Do I think we're going to encounter the phenomenon? No, I don't. But I will get testimony. We are going to sit out there on the boat or in the village with our night vision goggles and whatever. And I will get as much testimony as I can. I speak the dialect. Even the Peruvians from Lima, the capital city of Peru, when they went into the jungle, they had a hard time. They have a hard time understanding the jungle people. It's the equivalent of like someone from New York or California or Los Angeles going into the deep South, right? Going into the bayou. And talking to people who barely speak English in the bayou, right? But that happens to be the dialect that I speak best in Spanish. I guess I speak hillbilly Spanish really well, and so it turns out that that's the dialect that that's the dialect of Spanish I learned when I learned Spanish. So So anyway, that's the plan, and And also, one more thing to cap this off, I was talking to the villagers, and I asked them, I said, what do you guys think is going on? I mean, they all have a little bit of different opinions, but I was talking to the school teacher, the high school teacher. I said, what do you think is going on? He's a young guy, 27, I think. His name's Christian. And by the way, I found out that this is an evangelical community. Which,
really?
In the jungle? Yeah, it's the Iquitu tribe. So each different tribe, they're different. Some of them are Catholic, some of them are secular, some of them are evangelical, or there's a mix, right? This is a primarily evangelical Christian community, I found out. So I was talking to him, I said, what do you think's going on? And he said, well, we're divided in our minds. He said, we think it's... I said, do you think and I forgot to say that the story that the press was pushing, I forgot to finish that thought. The story that the press was pushing, that was appearing in our media, and everybody sort of, when this story came out, our media said, "Oh, okay, mystery solved. We're all done with this story." Is that this is the story? River miners with jetpacks.
Right.
So river miners, and these are not people who are mining in a mountain. These are guys who drudge the river for gold. And if you've ever encountered river miners in Peru, it makes it so much more ridiculous if you ever encounter these people. River miners who are being provisioned, funded by the cartels, are attempting to drive these people off their land, scaring them. They're equipped with high-tech jetpacks that even, jetpacks that we don't even see our military equipped with, that somehow enables them to maneuver at nighttime, sometimes silently, or I would say most of the time silently, through the Amazon jungle at nighttime. You can't hardly walk through the Amazon jungle without a machete, let alone jetpack around in there, at nighttime. And the best jetpacks in the commercial sector, they're like a few minutes of fly time, right? So that was a story. And Christian told me, the villager said, nope, it's definitely not jetpackers. However, it might be organ harvesters with advanced technology. That's what he said. Or, he said, or it's non-human. That's what he said. So
one of the things I find really interesting about the story, and I've read some of the accounts that have gone all over the world. I mean, I was just looking at the Jerusalem Post account here. These hit the wire services, and they're always looking for clickbait. So you get a Red Top in the UK publishes it. You'll find it then in all over Aussie papers, Israeli papers here in the US, UK. Of course, they love that kind of stuff. The number of descriptions of these entities as being insect-like, especially considering the number of accounts of people who have taken DMT, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, who report seeing insectoid or insect-like creatures in these other dimensions. So my way of thinking is that this is not necessarily coincidental. I mean, if we're going to go in the non-human direction, I think we're looking at possibly these things manifesting in that region for some reason.
But for whatever reason.
As for why, though, that would be your area of expertise, having lived there for 10 years. I mean, what could they possibly want? Why there?
Well, I've encountered some weird things in the jungle, but most of what I encountered was metaphysical. This seems to be very physical. I mean, whatever these things are, whoever they are, and I'm not ruling out. I'm ruling out miners with jetpacks, but I'm not ruling out organ harvesters. And there's reasons why. But whatever these things are, attempted to physically take this young girl, apparently. So, and also the other. I asked the guy, has there been any recent activity? And he said about a few weeks ago, so this would be about 4 weeks ago at this point, they were patrolling, all the men of the village are patrolling at nighttime with their guns. And they have shotguns and rifles. A lot of these guys only have one bullet. But nevertheless, they have shotguns and rifles. And they're patrolling, and they see, and I think if I recall, the river's right up next to the village. If I recall, they saw this craft, typical flying saucer type thing at nighttime with the lights around it. No noise. It descended and landed. I think it was on the other side of the river. And the men started yelling and shouting and started discharging their firearms at it. And it just sort of lifted off and took off. So there's still something going on. That happened within the month, within a month ago. And again, I don't expect to encounter the phenomenon. For their sakes, I really hope it's aliens and not organ harvesters. Because, organ harvesters, that's a big business now. Organ harvesters, I watched a documentary, and they were saying that an organ harvester makes anywhere between $60,000 and $80,000 per adolescent. And, of course, that's not even including what they do to them first, which is the sex trafficking. And then once they use them up, as horrifying as it is, once they use them up in sex trafficking, then they harvest their organs. And that is, as we all know at this point, that is the biggest business in the world.
Yeah.
And, or I should say this, that is the biggest, that's the biggest, what's the word I want to use here? Black market business in the world is what I want to say. It's the biggest black market business. It has surpassed the trafficking of narcotics. The trafficking of human beings is now much more lucrative than the trafficking of narcotics. So it is a serious thing. And I really hope that that's not what's happening. And I doubt it, because it doesn't make any sense. So you've got these organ harvesters with advanced technology, obviously well-funded, and they're making incursions every night for all these weeks, and they fail to get one person. And these, and you got these Peruvian jungle people running around with their janky shotguns. When I was in the jungle, the hunter that I lived with for a while, his shotgun was held together with rope. So I'm thinking, my God, if these are organ harvesters, then they're like really bad at their job. So I don't know, but again, I hope that's not the case. But and I should say also, I'm not stupid and I'm not reckless. I've got a wife and 5 kids, and I made sure I've got contacts in Peru. And shout out to my friend Dave Salvaggio, if he ever hears this, from Chicago. But I've got contacts at the Navy in Peru, and I've got 2 active duty jungle commandos going with me, fully armed, and several villagers fully armed who will be accompanying me all the way up. So, I'm not a dummy, and I'm not going into this, like just a dumb gringo. I'm not a tourist. So I'm taking every precaution. I'm actually more worried about malaria than I am about face peelers or organ harvesters.
Good. Is there a way people can support what you guys are doing? I mean, the fact that you're bringing food and medicine to these people who are terrified and who've been essentially cut off. I mean, you say it's a 2-day trip up the river to get to these villages. From what I can see on the map, that's really the only way to get there. This is not something where you can, fly a plane in there. There's no small rural airfield or anything like that. You basically have to get on a boat and travel for a couple of days to get there. So when these people are cut off, they are really, really isolated. Is there a way to support and help fund what you guys are doing?
I should have made a way. I don't have one. I don't have one. No, I'm co-funding this thing with these guys from Conduit Church. And I probably should have opened, because I know a lot of people would want to help. But let's just say you can pray for me and keep me in your thoughts and prayers as I go and undertake this expedition. But financially speaking, I really don't have a portal for that right now. Maybe if upon investigation, if there's some other things that need to be done, then maybe I'll open up a portal for people to help financially. But and I do appreciate everybody, because I know that as people are hearing about this, I'm getting emails and text messages and everything. Hey, we want to help you do this, and it's like, I'm kind of too far in at this point to even try and bring any more than what I'm bringing in terms of provisions. But I do appreciate the desire to help us, but certainly pray for us, because it could very well be some sort of a spiritual thing. It wouldn't surprise me, but so it is the Amazon jungle, and there's some very dark things that go on out there, spiritually speaking, let's say.
Yeah. Speaking of travel, we'll just touch on this very briefly because the situation on the ground is so fluid that Tim is our guest on our planned Israel tour, March 31st through April 9th of 2024. Obviously, the situation as it stands on the ground there is not conducive to travel. Lipkin Tours, our friend Aaron Lipkin, the CEO, just sent out a note through his Telegram channel, and then sent out a note through his staff to us privately that his company is basically postponing all travel for the rest of this year into next year, and that's because they think that the imminent ground invasion of Gaza and whatever happens in the north with Hezbollah will probably last 2 or 3 months. That is the expectation of people in Israel right now. Whether that proves to be true or not, we don't know. So at this point, we've not even really considered the possibility of delaying or postponing our tour. But if we get into December and it looks like things are going to continue for a while, we will certainly do that. So if you're already interested or had already put down a deposit on the tour with Tim Alberino in Israel in the spring, just know that we're probably about 6 weeks or 8 weeks out from making any kind of a decision on that. And we certainly pray that things have calmed down before we get to next spring. It was really bizarre, Tim, looking on the news reports coming out of Israel from I-24 News and other media sources and seeing some of the villages in the north that we visited, because these are sites mentioned in the book of Enoch. We wanted to go and see them. The waters of weeping, Avel Ma'in, where Enoch delivered the judgment of God to the weeping angels. We were there, but to get there, you've got to go through this little village called Metula, which is the northernmost village in Israel, and the village is surrounded on 3 sides by Lebanon. So when they were saying, anti-tank rounds fired from Lebanon into a village, it's like we saw that hill. We drove down that little road, and our tour guide, who's got a wonderful sense of humor, said, see those white vehicles over there? Hezbollah. He was joking because they had big UN, UN on the side of each of those vehicles, which kind of begs the question, what the heck is the UN doing if Hezbollah fighters can just, try to cross that valley between Israel and Lebanon? But anyway, so that's the status at this point. We will make a decision once we get into December. But Tim, where do people follow your work and your video content, your books, and so on?
You can follow me on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Timothy Alberino. My handle on social media is always the same, Timothy Alberino, at Timothy Alberino, no spaces or dots or anything like that. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. And you can sign up for my mailing list on my website, timothyalberino.com, and my book's available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, BarnesandNobles.com. But not in the store, at Barnes and Nobles or Walmart, but on their online platform.
All right. We'll put links in the show notes below. Tim, we will be praying for you and your colleagues, Doug Thornton, and the fellows going with you deep into the jungle, and look forward to finding out what you discover when you return to Peru.
Well, I will let you know. I'll be producing, by the way, when I get back. I'm going to be producing. We're filming. I should have said that. We are filming. We're not filming a movie. We're just doing a video investigation. Doug's got some, we're going low profile with camera equipment. We're just doing GoPros, which are really phenomenal at this point. But we're going in with GoPros, doing just very rudimentary filming interviews. Just sort of me just talking to the villagers, and then so I will do a video, not a movie, but a free video report when I get back. Either the week I get back, but then I'm off to Guatemala for 10 days. So might be when I get back from Guatemala, but I will be doing a free video report on my YouTube channel. So you can go subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you'll see that drop at some point. And of course, I'll come back on with you as well, Derek, and we can discuss should I find anything worth discussing.
All right. Fantastic. Tim, Godspeed and safe travels. Check the notes below wherever you're watching or listening to this particular program for links to Tim's website, where you can get a copy of the book Birthright, where you can follow him on YouTube, and more. Believe me, modern-day Indiana Jones, I think that pretty well sums it up. Coming up, where I'm going to be next weekend, if you're in the upper Midwest, opportunity to say hello. I'll be speaking a couple of nights in North Dakota, my mother's home state, land of my ancestors. Tell you about that and more as A View from the Bunker continues straight ahead.
Hi, everybody. Believe it or not, this is October, and that means you get a brand new GHTV special offer.
We're approaching Halloween, the time of year when the world around us is focused on ghosts and goblins and devils and demons.
But they're real.
They're real, and we'd like to give you good information about those entities with our October special. First, our book Veneration, where we analyze the ancient cult of the Nephilim, the origin of demons exposed in this book. Vicki Joy Anderson's important book, They Only Come Out at Night, about night terrors and sleep paralysis.
You need this book at home for your kids and grandkids. Trust me, it is a great book. And
7 hours of audio interviews with the late Dr. Michael Heiser about the nature of the unseen realm.
Oh, this is a collector's disc.
It really is. Altogether, these 3 items purchased separately worth $65 during the month of October, just $35 plus shipping and handling. Take advantage of this because this is good, solid, scholarly information, especially the content from Dr. Heiser.
It is, and particularly this month, you want to be armed with the truth when your family asks, what about witches? What about wizards? What about these things at Halloween? What do we do with this? It's a time to teach.
Absolutely. Take advantage of our October special offer. Veneration, they only come out at night, and The Unseen Adversary, yours for just $35 plus shipping and handling only at gilberthouse.org/store. Talking the walk every Sunday night from the beautiful Missouri Ozarks. This is A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. You'll find us online at vftb.net. Our main web hub, gilberthouse.org, where you'll find not just this program, but where Sharon and I produce our weekly Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship. Also links to our broadcast program, Unraveling Revelation, and our weekly podcast, PID Radio. The PID stands for Peering into Darkness, which we have been doing since 2005 now. In fact, yesterday's episode featured the first 2 interviews we ever did with Tom Horn in the fall of 2005 and the spring of 2006. So if you haven't heard those before, you might want to catch those now. You'll find that at pidradio.com, or better yet, the way to get all of our content without having to search the web is to download our app. Get our free app. It's a way to guarantee we never get canceled because it is our app. All the content hosted by a Christian company. In fact, they produce the apps for many of our friends in media ministry. Skywatch TV, Prophecy Watchers, Doug Hamp, L.A. Marzulli, many others will attest to the reliability of this particular app. And on the app, we've added the messaging function, so it's almost like a self-contained social media platform where you can exchange notes with like-minded believers and ask for prayer. And because of that particular section, there's sections in there for ask questions of Derek and questions for Sharon and the various programs we produce. But the prayer request section has been the most active, and it's become the most active app on my phone. So you'll find the link for that at vftb.net. You'll just look in the top menu bar or go to gilberthouse.org/app. Download it, add it to your smartphone or tablet. We've also got versions for Roku and Apple TV if you just want to put it on your set-top box and watch the video content there. The added features like the audio Bible and other stuff, that's all in the app. And again, you'll find it at gilberthouse.org/app. Well, we knew this was going to happen. I don't want to get too dark about this because, well, the Lord knows that what's going on between Israel and Hamas right now is a very old war. And it goes farther back than 1973, 1967, 1948. It goes back before the Zionist movement of the late 19th century. It goes back before the creation of Islam in the early 7th century. This is a spiritual war that goes back, in my view, at least to Genesis chapter 6, perhaps even Genesis chapter 3. I believe that Allah is Shemiyaza, the leader of that rebellion in Genesis chapter 6, who's gone by many names throughout the centuries: Saturn, Kronos, Baal-Hamon, El, Enlil, Asher, Dagon, Milcom, which means Molech, and I think he'll be Abaddon or Apollyon of Revelation 9. But you probably have noticed as the world has responded to the conflict between Israel and Hamas that there are certain groups on the political left that are looking for ways to excuse what Hamas has done. They're taking the sides of the Palestinian cause as it is put forward by Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Fatah, Hezbollah, and so on. One of the strangest is the group of people who are advocating for variant lifestyles, the LGBT plus community. Now, in London yesterday, and this is no laughing matter, but in London yesterday, there were some 100,000 protesters who took to the streets to support Hamas. That is frightening. John Cleese, you remember John Cleese, legendary comic, Fawlty Towers, before that Monty Python's Flying Circus. He made the observation several years ago and was roundly criticized, canceled from some venues for pointing out that in certain sections of London anymore, it no longer looks English. That London, in large part, is no longer English. And we were there in 2019, and we can attest to that. There were organizations hanging banners from the street lights, the light poles in London, and whoever this guy was for this Islamic charity looked almost like he was a dead ringer for Osama bin Laden. And this is in 2019 in London. There was an open air market that looked like it would have been in Old City Jerusalem on the streets of East London. So anyway, you get 100,000 people in London, one of the biggest and most powerful cities in the Western world, which, by the way, is called the West because that's all it was left after Islam got done with it in the 8th century, protesting in favor of Hamas. And joining this protest was a group of LGBT plus allies with their flag, marching along with the pro-Palestinian crowd, who promptly proceeded to tackle those guys and trample the flag. Now, I don't know if this is a dose of reality that will wake them up to the situation. The truth on the ground is if they tried to go to a Muslim city, a predominantly Muslim city, and openly flaunt their Queers for Palestine flag, they're not going to be treated any better. It astonishes me that just clear-thinking people, even if they disagree on standards of morality, should be able to look at the history of Islam over the last 14 centuries, look at the Quran and the Hadiths and Sharia law, and understand that this is a really, really strange cause to support if you're in favor of LGBT plus rights, because the people you're marching in support of aren't likely to appreciate it, as it was evidenced on the streets of London yesterday. I don't think anyone was hurt, and I'm thankful for that. And boy, all we can say, the Queers for Palestine, bless your pointy little heads. Next weekend, again, I don't wish them any harm. Honestly, I don't. It's just the disconnect, the lack of cognitive dissonance there is just astonishing. Well, I will be in North Dakota next weekend. God bless her, my loving, supportive wife. It is her birthday next weekend, and I will be in North Dakota speaking at a small gathering. This is it is a little small, like festival or fair, best practices for small farmers and homesteaders. And then I'll be speaking in the evening. Opportunity to go back and visit my mother's home state. I haven't been there in 45 years. So, happy to go and speak. I will be talking about giants in the Bible next Friday night. That's the 27th. And then Saturday, the 28th, I'll be talking, as we're approaching Halloween, demons, devils, and dragons. God, the author of the book, calls these entities demons, devils, dragons in the book. And when you read the text, it seems that he's pretty clear that these are real things. So we'll be talking about that next Friday and Saturday, I should say, at the Pitchfork and Hoe gathering at the Eagles Club in Valley City, North Dakota. I'll be speaking at 7 p.m. Central Time both nights. And if you're anywhere in the region and can get to Valley City Friday night or Saturday night, God bless you. Love to see you there. And I know the folks or the organizers would love to have you as well. Here's another clue. I'm not going to bring any books to set up a book table there, but we will have a special discount code exclusive to the Pitchfork and Hoe gathering. So if you're there, we'll give you a special discount code for use at our store, gilberthouse.org. Skywatch TV's Tour of Israel, as we said in the first segment, this really is going to depend on what happens over the next 60 days or so. At this point, we don't even want to think about delaying or missing next year's tour. But if this conflict looks like it's going to drag out farther, we will certainly postpone it. I know that Lipkin Tours has already postponed all of the tours they've scheduled through the rest of 2023 into 2024. And we will just keep an eye on the situation. When we get to December, we will evaluate and make a decision. I know that Aaron Lipkin and his team have no desire to bring anybody into a war zone. So for more information, the latest information, go to gilbertsinisrael.com. That takes you to the Lipkin Tours website. It's easier to remember the long address that it points to, but gilbertsinisrael.com gets you there. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to watch or listen to this program wherever you're consuming it. If you're listening, that is a blessing. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wait, no, it's not Stitcher. It's Pandora now. Wherever else you find us, which is, of course, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Our announcer is the inimitable D.C. Good. And A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, not commercial, no derivatives 4.0 international license. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.